Hi, everyone. So, same sex marriage, what is it all about? It's been a long time ago, right? Since we've been talking. I'm totally out now, as you know me. As usual, the audience who have joined in, please participate. There's a comment box. We will take your questions and some comments as well. Now, let's talk about the issue that is gripping India and our LGBTQ community at the moment. Last week, after the Indian government said it opposes same sex unions, India's Supreme Court referred petitions seeking recognition of same sex marriages to a five judge constitutional court. The five judge bench will listen to petitions on April 18th while live streaming the proceedings on its websites and YouTube. The wonderful conservative Indian government informed the Supreme Court that it is against same sex marriage and any changes were up to Parliament but not the courts. The government said that any interference was likely to result in complete havoc with the delicate balance of personal laws in the country and the accepted societal values. Now, let me remind you the Supreme Court decriminalized homosexuality in 2018 by doing away with the colonial era ban on gay sex. Over the coming weeks, we will host a series of discussions, debates, inviting panelists like the ones we have today, offering different views on this very pertinent topic. Today, we have with us three extremely passionate and known activists to discuss and shed more light on this subject same sex marriage in India. What is it all about? So, please join me in welcoming Advocate Niharika Karanjawala Mishra. Is it Misra or Mishra?
Misra.
Mishra, thank you. Principal Associate Karanjawala and Company, a lawyer in Delhi and has been practicing criminal law for over 10 years and a strong ally to our community. And I want to first of all thank you. I've heard so many of your interviews and I absolutely love the way you speak, the way you share your comments, and the way you stay calm and tell people exactly what you think of them.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be on here.
Next, I'm going to invite We've got Dr. Surbi Mitra here, who's a psychiatrist and a human rights activist who has recently had a commitment ceremony with her same sex partner, Paramita Mukherjee. Now, Dr. Surbi Mitra has so many credentials to her name that as we speak today at the conversation, we'll bring that all in. Your PhDs and your activism and the human rights work that you do, we'll talk all about that, Surbi. Please welcome me in joining Sridhar Rangayan, who is a very, very dear friend. I love him so much. He smiles all the time. He makes the most wonderful films. Sridhar, Your Evening Shadows is one of my most favorite films, as you know. I mean, it still makes me cry when I watch it. And you're making another film, I know. We'll talk more about that later. And Sridhar has been with his same sex partner, Sagar, who I love as well, for over 26 years. I mean, welcome.
28 years, 28 years. We have only, yeah, we spoke 2 years back. 28 years now.
Gosh.
Perfect.
Okay, over 28 years. Oh my God, I don't know what to say, Sridhar. So, okay, we start with Niharika. Niharika, please can you start with the timeline? What is this section 377? What is the central government having problems with? What are the issues we're talking about? What is this whole thing about society? What do the laws allow us? And where are we standing right now?
So I'm really glad you started with that, Raga, because as we were discussing earlier, other than people whose liberties themselves are curbed, a great section of the population doesn't have a strong understanding of what exactly is required in order for LGBTQ rights to come up to the point of equal rights in this country today. As you mentioned, a lot of people are under the impression that since 377 was rolled back, it is now a completely equal position, which, as you and I know, is not really true. Now, the rollback of Section 377, which is a British colonial law and which banned everything other than penile vaginal sex, irrespective of orientation, that was read down by the Supreme Court in the year 2018. It was a landmark judgment, five judge bench. And after that reading down and after the decriminalization of homosexuality, as it were, what the courts did instruct was that the state and other mechanisms should put forward awareness campaigns and move towards proper integration of the LGBTQ community into society. Now, whether that was actually done or achieved is a debatable option, because the court had said that the stigma associated with homosexuality needs to be done away with. And I think in large sections of society, it is still not done away with. Then 2018 was another very big year in terms of equal rights, because we also got the Shafiq Jahan and the Shakti Vahini judgments, which said that the right to marry the a person of one's choice is a fundamental right. It's an inalienable right. And then recently, just in 22, a judgment came out which stated that same sex relationships ought to have the same allowances as heterosexual couples in a live in relationship. But the question of marriage still remains. And a lot of people say, why are you even making such a fuss about it? You're being allowed to live your lives. But a lot of people don't realize what the day to day impediments are. And I'm sure this entire panel would be able to explain that far better than I would. But I think it is very important for the general public to see that this goes down to every aspect of your daily life. Simple things like, can you start a bank account with your partner? If you are, as is your situation, Raga, if you are married abroad, what is your situation then when you come to India? And going to absolutely essential things such as the ability to make end of life decisions for a partner. Now, a lot of people have said, oh, but you have other relatives. And I didn't get a chance to clarify this in one of the earlier shows, when someone was saying, but you have other relatives, they can make the decisions for you, why can't they? Now, there are a number of people, of members of the LGBTQ communities, whose families have been very accepting of them. That is not true for a large section of people. And for a large section of people, coming out of the closet means getting shunned by the rest of your family. Choosing to be with your chosen partner means, in a lot of instances, that you give the rest of your family up because they cannot be accepting of it. And in that instance, if you, God forbid, find yourself in a difficult position, in a hospitalized position, your partner may very well be the only person that you have with you. Quite aside from the fact that they are likely the person you want making those decisions, they are the person you've dedicated your life to, they are the person you want in charge. But in a lot of instances, they may actually be the only person there. So I think if the general public knew how significant these impediments are on a day-to-day basis, there would be a lot more empathy towards towards allowing and supporting true equal rights to all people of this
Sure,
country.
sure, Niharika, on that. What I'm curious to know is that
Mhm.
what are the rights that we have anyway? As of now, does the LGBTQ community have any rights at all? Did Section 377, apart from giving them protection, give them any rights at all?
See, as it gave protection from decriminalization, in theory, it gave absolutely equal rights. In theory, equal rights to every other citizens of this country. However, the mechanism is not fully developed yet. We in our petitions have stated that we feel the mechanism is there, and it's just simply a question of a wide interpretation and a gender fluid interpretation of the current laws. But in effect, theoretically, while it may have said, all right, you are now at a position of complete equality, practically it has not stopped a lot of harassment, especially by police in small towns, things like that. Just recently, in fact, just about a month ago, 2 months ago, something like that, at the beginning of February, I think, there was a petition filed in the Supreme Court. It was a habeas petition, a habeas corpus petition, filed by a lady whose partner was being, according to her, was being held hostage by her parents and forcibly sent to conversion therapy. Now, these are things that ought to be illegal in this country, but they are still happening on a practical day to day basis. They're still slipping under the radar. You also had a lot of members of these small fringe right wing groups talking about how, when, if in their town, a homosexual couple checks into a hotel, they have called the police on them, they've had them arrested, it's a not in our town kind of thing. And frankly, what you're talking about is you are openly talking on television about how you yourself are committing a crime. So, I mean, clearly it goes to show that a lot of practical freedoms are not assured to people in the LGBTQ community. And that's why, alongside the legal developments, I think I think social awareness campaigns also need to be largely undertaken.
Sure, sure. No, we'll come to that because I think that's a really very good and very relevant point. We talk about society because I also remember this huge arguments where I have been also invited to speak at, and the arguments are so baseless that society is basically marriage is a union between a biological man and a woman. That's the first thing they say, and they say that anything like this will bring chaos, bring havoc to society. And I'm saying that Section 377 happened. I know a lot of people were saying that, oh, society is going to collapse. What are we doing?
Absolutely.
Nothing collapsed. Nobody died. We're still here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I
And
think this
in fact,
drama.
I think a lot of the more conservative commentators who are saying today that it'll be problematic and whatnot, I think they themselves are living proof of the fact that once a judgment comes out, everybody falls in line and accepts it. Because a few years ago they were saying if 377 is decriminalized, there'll be havoc in the streets. And now, just a few years later, they're saying, well, that was okay, that was fine, and we support that and we respect you in privacy. But no marriage. So they themselves, I feel, are living proof of the fact that people can change and can go forward and accept tolerance when it is
I
put
agree.
out.
I agree, and that's why I'm going to come back to Sridhar. Sridhar, Sridhar, we were again on a panel together the other day, and I thought that panel was exceptionally toxic. It was abusive, and I feel that people resort to name calling when they have no rationale. When they run out of arguments, that's the only thing you can do. And offense is the best form of defense. We all know that. But I thought there was a very interesting point raised when Niharika said earlier that rights are available to us. 377 gave us protection and gave us same rights, right? But that's not, we don't know about it. Now, in your case, you've been with Sagar, your partner, for over 28 years, I should remember. I was going to say over 28 years, but maybe over 28 years. But tell me, why do you think it is important for you to have marriage as a stamp? Because when you already have rights, apparently. You're on mute, Sridhar.
Okay, yeah. Okay, basically the thing is we have rights as individual persons, after the Section 377 reading down. I as a person is supposed to have equal rights, but it's still not, of course, because there's, I would say, discrimination at every level. Whether you're going to, if you're working for a corporate company, you're discriminated as a LGBTQ person. And even I would say, even as a filmmaker, I'm discriminated as an LGBTQ filmmaker instead of a mainstream filmmaker. So I do not get the same opportunities which a non-LGBTQ filmmaker would get. I'm not able to sit at the same table as other non-LGBTQ filmmakers. There's a certain, I'm not saying a stigma in my case, but it's a discrimination which I feel that I'm relegated to making only LGBTQ films, where I'm capable of making a lot more. And that's a different argument altogether, but definitely there's stigma and discrimination being faced by the LGBT community in a day-to-day level. And also, right now I'm sitting in Mumbai. I'm more privileged because I have access to education. I'm also 60. I've lived my life a lot more. But for a younger person who's just coming to terms with his or her sexuality right now in a small town, okay, there's huge stigma and discrimination. That person does not have enough awareness about what their rights are. They might have the rights, but the knowledge of rights is still limited. I don't think, basically, none of the school textbooks talk about LGBTQ issues. So when you're growing up, you have no idea that who you are is very normal. You're always the other kind of person. And also when you're younger, you're bullied in schools and colleges. And that leaves a lasting impression in your mind, even today. I would say in colleges across the metro cities, there might still be a little more awareness. But when you go to schools in small towns or schools, even in Mumbai or Delhi, that the other kind of person would be discriminated against. And what I'm saying, the person who present themselves differently, whether
Sure.
in an
Oh,
effeminate
sorry,
manner or a
Sridhar,
masculine manner. Yeah.
I'm going to interrupt here because that will come to when we talk about society as a whole and the contribution that we all make to change that mindset. But what I want to know is, why do you want the stamp of marriage? Why do you want to be legally married to your partner? You've been with him for 28 years. You've lived a great life. So now why, what difference will this make?
The one of the things would be like, mainly for me, like more than anything else, like the right to basically each other's bodies, as I call it. So as Niharika had already mentioned, when my partner is ill and in a hospital, I'm not able to allow to be signed for any surgical procedures. Any surgical procedures has to be signed by the family member, by the kith and kin. So a non-married partner is not considered family. So as Niharika said, like, I'm privileged that my family is accepting of me. They can perhaps come and sign for me, for my partner or me. But when you're basically thrown out of your family because you're with a single partner, same-sex partner, that's when the thing really kicks in. And are really important for me to have that right to marry, whether I want it as a civil partnership or a marriage, or whatever the thing is. But we need a paper to say that we are partners and we are able to that's one of the things. And also own properties together. It's very complicated to own a property together. So, and also, like, suppose my family is accepting, but if I'm not, all my assets which I have should flow to my partner because we've been living together for so many years. But my if I pass away, the assets will flow to my family back because they are supposed to be legal custodians of my assets. So these are the things which I really think important. And of course, for people who want to adopt a child, it's very complicated for single people or unmarried gay couples or lesbian couples to adopt a child, even today. So these are the three factors I would be really keen to kind of change with a same-sex marriage right being introduced. Yeah.
Sure, I'll come back to you, Sridhar, because you actually made me reflect on a few other things that I have actually been through, and I want to discuss that as well. And I'll come to Dr. Surabhi. Dr. Surabhi, you have had a commitment ceremony. So first of all, I want to know, in short, your beautiful love story. I think it's very important for our audience to hear that there are women, younger women there in India who are making such choices, such decisions. You invited 150 guests for your wedding, for your commitment ceremony, or engagement, if I may call it. And I just want to understand why you made that decision and how did that impact your life in society at this point, and why would you therefore want to have a legal marriage? Will it make a difference to your life?
Yeah, thank you, Raga, for the question. So how it is that we were planning to call it an engagement, just like any other heterosexual couple. But then we decided that we are getting committed, and that would be a commitment for a lifetime. So rather than facing problems from, say, government officials, or maybe the police, or maybe some people who may have wreaked havoc at our ceremony, we decided that we will name it as a commitment ring ceremony rather than an engagement. Even like in case if this does not get legalized, that is the same-sex marriages. The hope is on, but in case it does not get legalized, we will definitely be calling our marriage a civil union. So these changes of words we had to make because, as you know, the problematic society and the problematic politicians out there, and the way they handle the police, and the way the police handles the situations in these cases. So because of all of that, we had to do it. How it has impacted our life in the society? So I would say that earlier many people knew about my orientation, and I would not like to use the word sexual orientation in this because a country like India, which does not even talk about sex per se, they are not able to wrap around their heads when it comes to sexual orientation. So I would call it a romantic orientation, emotional orientation, and so on. So they knew about mine since a very long time, at least my society did. And they were the ones who encouraged us to go for the ring ceremony. They said that, why are you proposing each other on the beach? Actually, there was a time when we were wanting to propose each other on the beach with just 10, 12 friends. But then they said that, it doesn't make any sense. You are just like any other couple. You should go for a proper ceremony, and we will attend it. We will stand by you. So they all attended, and there were 150 to 200 guests that we had in the ceremony. We even had people witnessing the ceremony through Google Meet across the world. We have friends across the world, so that's how it happened. And how it changed later on is that definitely the media followed us everywhere. They wanted to capture our story. They wanted to know how it happened, why we took a decision about it, what is our love story, etc., etc. And it got printed all over the many news papers and magazines, and it came on many news channels as well, on TV as well. many radio podcasts as well.
Sure.
So we were kind of celebrated. It was not something that was considered a stigma, at least in our society. But later on, as we went on to meet more and more people, say from media or from other aspects of the society, we saw that they were also kind of very supportive. No one gave any, you may say, a bad comment on it, or nobody asked stupid questions like, how do women do it, or how do two women stay together like this as a couple. So these derogatory questions were not asked to us, thankfully. But a few might have, just to know scientifically as to how it is. So that was it with us. So I would say that wherever we go now, we are considered a couple, we are considered to be together. We are known as a couple, and there is nothing to be stigmatized about it. At least as I see, wherever we walk into restaurants, we are considered a couple. At her workplace, they know that we are a couple. At my workplace, they know we are a couple. So
Brilliant.
it's good for us.
Dr. Surbi, thank you. I'm just like overwhelmed listening to you because I think it was worth the fight. Our fight, Sridhar, our generation, I think created space for people like Dr. Surbi and Paromita.
Thank you so much for that.
No, and pleasure. It's really heartening to see this now. But this is an interesting point that where I want Niharika to come in. So here is a couple that lives their life, and they have been celebrated, which is fantastic. Media has loved it. I got to know about Dr. Surbi through media as well, and through another friend of mine. So media celebrates it, and everything is everybody's rejoicing, and there's joy around. Then there is people like Sridhar who are very well known in in the industry, in the film industry. Sridhar is very well known. Sagar and Sridhar do wonderful things together, including the Mumbai Kashish Queer Film Festival, which I try and attend every year. So beautiful things are done like that, but that's one part of the lens. But from the other side, then you have all these people saying, "Sorry, we are the society. This is unnatural. It's against our Indian culture." So I want to know, Niharika, where is there protection really in law for people like us if we do get these kind of comments? Like we know, like somebody called us filth the other day, and it was not just once or twice, quite a few times. So when somebody keeps calling you filth, 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 the society who's listening, not just the LGBTQ community outside of us, they're thinking, oh yeah, these people are filth, right? And so when we're taking 5 steps forward, these people are taking 10 steps behind. So how do we manage that, and how are we protected? What do we do when something like this happens? It's defamation, right? As far as I'm concerned.
Uh, I would say yes and no. I don't know if it can, strictly speaking, be called defamation in a criminal sense. In
Okay.
India, certainly it is totally out of control behavior. And I feel that the answer to all of these things is more awareness, more education. One of the major issues behind why individuals of the LGBTQ community are still considered in this otherness way is because a lot of people don't have very many friends from the LGBTQ community. They don't have family members. They don't have role models that they're looking up to. It's a notion of, oh, these things are things that happen in big cities, maybe. These things are things that happen in a certain type of society. These things are not things that happen over here. And therein lies the main problem, because in the mind of the common person you still have an otherness associated. Now, even the question of why do you want to get married, I mean, surely the answer is the same as why any straight couple wanted to get married. I was with my husband for 8 years before we got married, and frankly we could have continued as we were, we could have moved in and continued as we were, but we wanted to get married. And there was nothing controversial about it, of course, because we are a heterosexual couple, but there were reasons we wanted to get married. And I do think it was important to the both of us. It is another step in building your life with a person. And when you have impediments such as, oh, you can't even put that person down on your life insurance policies, or you have to always explain who this person is, these are small day-to-day impediments. And that isn't a reason, that isn't it's just something you shouldn't have to encounter in life. My friend Udit, who's one of our petitioners in the High Court, I thought he put it very well. And he and I were just talking, we were just having a conversation. We weren't having like a legal conversation about it. Right? He just said that if we are equal in the law, whatever rights you get, I get too. That's it. It's not a question of whether I want to get married. It's not a question of whether getting married is the right move for me. I can win the right to it and choose never to do it. But the question is the right to it,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
And when you have a situation of otherness, when you have a situation where people are afraid in small towns to come out of the closet. Some people I know have been told, you fine, whatever, you're okay, you live in the city now, you live there and you live your life, but if you tell your father that this is happening, it'll kill him. Which is, it's
Yeah,
an unnecessarily cruel way of thinking. And for a lot of people, I believe these questions that come with, oh, but why do you need to, oh, but how do you, it's
yeah,
insulting. Yes, maybe some people don't intend to be insulting, they are anyway. And the point is, it is because they themselves don't have enough lived experience with knowing that uh, people of any orientation are exactly like you, right? They're
yeah,
exactly like you. They were born and brought up in the same culture, they were born
yeah,
and brought up in the same scenarios as you have. When you come down and speak to one another, there is absolutely no difference between your personalities, and probably very little difference between your views. And once there's greater awareness, once people feel comfortable coming out of the closet in their hometowns as well, not just once they move to big cities and leave small town ideas behind,
sure.
that's when the situation of otherness will go away, where your parents won't be worried about, oh, what will the
What
neighbors
people
think,
say. Yeah. This
exactly.
whole log kya kahenge, and you said very rightly about otherness. I always talk about this. We say others are saying that wo kya kahenge, wo kya kahenge. But who's the
Absolutely.
wo? Log
Exactly.
kaun hai? Log hum hi to hai na.
Exactly.
We
And
are that
even,
log.
and there's this sort of hushed argument that's being put forward right now about, oh, what about the children, but
Yeah.
oh, okay, maybe marriage shouldn't be allowed because it's a question of the children have rights. What is the apprehension here? Even the Honorable Chief Justice of India had to say in court the other day that a gay couple is not necessarily raising a gay child. And the fact is, they can't come to the point of what their apprehension is because they don't want to come out and say it. Because coming out and saying it will reveal a very easy answer to it, and most people will say, oh, it's ridiculous, right?
Sure.
Which is
Sure.
why there has to be this circuitous sort of, the secret part can't be spoken out loud way to approach it. Oh no, it's the children, we're thinking
Yeah.
about the children. And there
We.
are so many ways. Right now a gay couple can easily adopt a child. One of them can adopt as a single person. A lot of people have children from previous marriages, biological children. Raga, you told me that you and Nicola have
Yeah.
two children. And frankly, I mean, if the notion is that a gay couple might raise gay children, frankly, every gay person I know has been raised by a straight couple. So where does
Yeah.
the
I
question even
know.
arise?
I know
Yeah,
exactly, Niharika. So that's the point, right? That's the point. There are so many arguments which are baseless. You say no,
yes,
no, no. When you have conversations like that, like when we have conversations on different panels, they will just put forward their argument, and they say that's it.
absolutely,
I will.
absolutely.
I heard one other person say the other day that I we allow say there's a five times that we
Yeah, we
allow,
allowed
yeah,
you to do
yeah, to
this. Now
have,
don't ask for
yeah,
more.
yeah, three
Don't
six
ask to
seven,
be equal,
correct, yeah,
right?
377 be
That's the
allowed,
thing.
but we
Somebody
will
said
not
to me,
allow.
somebody said to me on a panel the other day, they were talking about, but I mean, what happens when those children go to school? When a PTA meeting is held, who goes? What does that even mean? Right? I mean, like, I'm not here to bash people, but frankly, I mean, society has to think about whether these arguments are enough to actually deprive people of rights. And what I would say is whether society is comfortable with it or not. Personally, I don't think society wants, if it is allowed by the courts, I don't think society will have that much of a problem with it, as they did not have that much of a problem with 377 being overturned. But can you theoretically say that society can decide that you are not able to have fundamental rights? And what kind of slippery slope are we headed to if that is the kind of country and the kind of rule that we are allowed to accept? Then any time I have to lose, right? If I am in a
Yeah,
minority situation, there'll never be an overwhelming majority of the country who wants what I want. But that's not how inalienable rights work, and it's not
exactly,
how they ever can
exactly.
work.
Niharika, I'm going to ask Sridhar this question because Sridhar does a lot of work in the creative space, and which is very important, right? Although I'm very sorry, Sridhar, that you don't get recognized for being a filmmaker and getting other work, which is very sad. And I know that it boxes us, because I do a lot of writing myself. It boxes us in the LGBTQ space, and therefore we don't have the talent or skill to be in any other spaces, which is a different conversation in itself. But Sridhar, in your own space, and we talk about society, she talked about othering and society. So how have you tackled this? I know you've made beautiful films like we spoke about earlier. So how do you think change can happen? Do you think Majama and the other films that we've seen, can they bring in change in society? Do you think mainstreaming films will help us?
Yeah, before I go into that conversation, Raga, I just want to touch upon something which Niharika brought out per se. One of the things is, even today, youngsters are afraid to come out because the parents will say, "What about your future?" Okay, and nowadays, even today, I mean, I know that so many of my younger friends are getting married to women. I mean, gay men are getting married to women, or people of the opposite sex, and that for me is a matter of concern. Even today in 2023, if you're choosing, in fact, some of these youngsters are intellectual enough, they're intelligent enough, they're choosing to marry somebody of the opposite gender, mainly because the parents pressure, so parents pressure is huge in India. So for us parents, basically they're going to be asking, what is your future like? So if I cannot say that I'm going to marry my partner and raise a family or be together and we are going to take care of each other like any other couple, then the parent is going to question me coming out as a gay man themselves. So this is a huge issue. And also for me, the concern is about the partner, the women partner of them, who are getting married to the gay man, and there's absolutely no support structure for her. She has nowhere to turn to, and that's a different conversation altogether, but that needs to be addressed very soon.
Sure. Sorry,
So we
Sridhar,
need
sorry, I'll interrupt there. I'm telling you on that point, it's such a valid point again. Again, it requires a completely different discussion, because I know personally, because I do a lot of activism and I'm constantly on receiving messages. I know of people who are in such what is called lavender marriages, where they're forced to be in a marriage by choice or by force. And then that's it. What happens to them? It's so tragic. It's so tragic. I cannot even start to talk about it. Sorry, Sridhar, please go ahead.
Yeah. And for at least for gay men, they have a choice, they can marry. But for lesbian women, there's not even choices, not even offered. They're forced to get married to people of the opposite gender. That's a given per se. Some people like Surabhi managed to basically come out and basically be open and basically have a commitment ceremony. Bravo, really appreciate your courage. But a lot of women are not able to do that. So that is one of the things I really think awareness is really important, and awareness could come from films and television shows and web series. Nowadays, I would say films are not doing as much as a job as a web series. The OTT platform is really ripe with a lot of positive portrayals of LGBTQ characters. So films are still playing safe a lot more. There are hardly any kind of, I would say, one in like 1,000 films which are actually true and focused on LGBTQ story. But in OTT shows, you have every other show has a character who belong to the LGBTQ community. Whether they belong to the story or not is a different question. That sometimes they're there just because the director or the writer wants to be woke. They want to dump these characters and say, okay, we're also talking about this. So we need to have stories which are integrate these characters in the broader story structure, not just have them just for namesake. So those are the conversations we are having right now in terms. But I think the OTT platforms are offering a lot more bandwidth for these characters to emerge and tell their stories. And also, I think the move towards actually having trans actors play trans characters, that's a huge shift, and that has to happen very soon. So I've been advocating for that. I have a bank of at least 40 trans actors. If anybody wants from anywhere in India, I can recommend. But people should come to us. People should approach these trans actors. And there are basically, I would say, like, there are some actors who are very good, but some actors need a bit of training. And I'm sure the people can do that. The directors can workshop with the actors. So those are conversations which are right now happening. And definitely there are much more positive portrayals across the bandwidth, not in television as much as films and OTT. Definitely things are changing.
Sridhar, basically what you're saying is that society, we are all making, we're collaboratively working towards change society. You're using OTT content or films to use that as a way to message the right information. I'm going to go to Surabhi, Dr. Surabhi right now. Dr. Surabhi, I'm actually very interested in knowing, which is a conversation that we were having earlier, and I interrupted you, and so I'm sorry about that. But tell me, why? Why do you really want to get married? Can you not just continue? I mean, you have a great life with Paromita. So why do you legally need to be married? What is the reason? So let's put this forward to people who oppose this. You know. So why do you want to get
Yeah.
married?
Yeah, see, with a marriage certificate, I know it's a very small certificate, but with a marriage certificate comes a lot of rights. And those rights are really, really important for a couple. I think that why, as the question is basically, why can't we have those basic fundamental rights? You know, uh, and it's like you open it for us, and if we use it or not, it's up to us. I'm not saying that all homosexual couples want to get married, just like all heterosexual people don't want to get married. There are many homosexual people also who don't want to get married. But at least we need to have that right to exercise whether or not we want to get married. But for me, as you asked, Raga, yeah, I do want to get married because I want to have all those rights and I want to celebrate those rights with my partner. That is basically getting to hold a joint account with her, getting to share property with her. After I go, at least she should get my assets. So the transference of assets should be there. I don't want it to go to anybody else, of course, just like that, because I haven't created them for them. Mainly, which something that really hurts me is being a doctor or being in the medical fraternity is that we cannot take each other's health decisions. We cannot give consent, and especially we were talking earlier about end of life consent, etc. Whether or not to sign a DNR, whether or not we need, what. See, if I have planned something for my life, if I am critical, then I will obviously tell it to my partner and go into a coma probably. Okay, just an example. So obviously she knows that what I want from the end result. So yeah, all those rights are necessary for us, and I don't want anybody else to do it for me, because everything is being shared with the partner and not with other relatives or any other friends. So the argument that other relatives can do it for you, friends can do it for you, no, why can't my partner do it for me?
Exactly, Dr.
So
Surbi, this
right.
is exactly what I've been shouting at the top of my roof, because this is exactly what we've been through. Really, really been through, because Nicola and I've just got married last year in August. We had to wait because obviously, and then we had to be, we constantly face judgment about children, bringing up children, or two women bringing up children. Oh my God, you don't know the stigma attached to it in their head, not in our head, not in our children's head. They love it. They love to. They have two loving parents, so they don't care if there's two moms or two dads.
Yeah,
They,
the last point
yeah,
that I wanted to add was this exactly, that
yeah,
we want to have adoption rights, we want to have surrogacy rights. And in case, and what Paramita and I are planning is that at least we can use one's ovum and the other one can become the uterus for it. So that both of us can get the feeling of being moms. So, all these rights are very necessary. Why shouldn't we get the right of becoming parents? Will we be
exactly.
bad parents?
No,
No,
exactly.
of course we will be raising loving children. We'll be loving them. We'll be caring for them. It's going to be similar to what heterosexual couples do for their children.
Exactly. And Dr. Surbi, it's again a very good point, because this is another separate full conversation, 1 hour discussion we are going to have in the future about raising children, same sex parents raising children, because it's a very important debate to have. Because we've got told just the other day again that, oh my God, you don't know that statistics say this, study says that. I don't know which studies they come across which says that. I know of many, many, many heterosexual couples, some of them known very closely to me, who are in a loveless marriage. There is huge amount of child abuse, domestic violence. You think that
Absolutely.
is the way to bring up children? I'm sorry, children need love, they need stability, they need safety, and they need ghar ka khana. Simple as that. Nothing else
In fact,
really.
I'll tell you, Raga, there has been certain research in which there has been almost near 0% report of child abuse in children of gay parents, whereas there has been a lot of percentage of child abuse in children of heterosexual couples. So the
Yeah, this.
research basically says this. I don't understand which other research they come
I
across, but
and they
we
never
read proper
cite.
research.
Dr. Sulbi, they
Yeah.
never cite the research. They'll say research says. I don't know why they feel so threatened, why they have to say these things. Men, it's particularly the men, and but I've also heard I won't take names, but another channel ferociously spoke about this subject. And this woman saying, you don't know. Marriage is a simple thing. Marriage is a license for two people to have sex. This is on national TV, she said this. And to procreate and to make children. If that is the mentality, I'm sorry, marriage is a union between two people who love each other to make children wherever, however they want to have children. You're one example,
Yeah.
and bring the children into a safe and loving world and make them good human beings who are inclusive, not this protesting because you don't have any sense of an argument. And
And
sorry, Niharika, I was coming to you. Go on, you say.
I just love to add one thing about the kids, because even and as you said, the studies uh, involved. Like, I pushed back on someone saying that there are studies that show that this might not be a good idea, by saying that most of these studies apply to two parent households. They don't essentially apply. And one of the things someone had said to me was, don't lie on national television. And I was a little taken aback by that, because I mean, people who know me well know that honesty is very important to me. And I wouldn't lie to put forward my agenda, because I think that's as bad as lying to it's as bad as lying about something. Lying to push forward something you believe in is as bad as lying to put down things you don't believe in. It's as bad. But I also find that what a lot of the research shows is, yeah, the research talks about children benefit from having role models of either gender. It doesn't necessarily have to be the parents. You benefit from having a strong role model of the same gender you are, because it sort of sets in stone the way you see yourself and your self confidence and self respect. And you benefit by having a strong role model of the opposite gender, because that sets the foundations for what your relationships will be with people of the opposite gender, and to ensure that you are treated in a certain way, and that you have respect for yourself, and you also demand respect for yourself. Now, like you had said, Raga, on another channel, families, especially families in India, where you come from a joint family system, they are of all kinds. Some people are raised by their grandparents, some people are raised by their aunt and uncle. A lot of people are raised in single parent households. They get those role models of each side. That is important for children, I agree, but it doesn't necessarily have to be their biological parents who are those two role models. It is important that they see a variety of role models from either gender. And another thing I wanted to say, which I find the empathy on this also very lacking when conversations about the children are had. Look at the number of children that are just growing up in adoption homes in this country. And the state does the best it can. I'm not here to bash people. I'm not here to bash the state. The state does the best it can with the resources it has. But I think we are all fully aware of what the conditions are in these children's homes. They grow up without structure. They grow up without any full sense of safety. They grow up with violence. Very often they grow up with abuse. And the notion that you still think it would be better for a child to languish their entire life in a home like that without being put into a loving family, that there is a shocking lack of empathy, in my opinion, there, for even the children involved in this
I
kind
think
of
it's tragic, Niharika. I really think it is. The word for me is tragic, because I know of
absolutely.
some of my friends here, same sex female couples. They want to adopt. They're married here, legally married. They want to
Absolutely.
adopt from India. They're not able to adopt. They're not allowed to adopt. So now they've been told you can go to other countries to adopt, but not from India. Now
And
it
even,
is
frankly,
tragic.
even for heterosexual couples, adoption under the Juvenile Justice Act is a very difficult thing in India. It's a shockingly difficult thing, especially since there are thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of children who need homes. It's very dispiriting. It's very disheartening.
But this is an argument I have heard repeatedly as well, saying, "Oh, what should we worry about your homosexual problems? Heterosexuals have our own problems." It's like the whole thing about you and us, they and us.
And I
It's
think
not
what's most
us.
important is people don't realize that rights don't mean anything unless everybody has them. If there is an
Exactly.
option to cut rights off for one person, then even if you're not in that group, you are also at risk, because there's an option to cut rights off for you as well. And I think that's something that people don't fully realize. Either we all have rights or none of us really have rights.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. People were celebrating because Nicola and I got married last year. They said, "Wonderful, Raga," which is great. I'm happy to celebrate as well. But I said, "And you're free now." They said, the social media handles, everybody was sharing, "You're free now," and I actually said, "Actually, I don't feel free. I am not free unless everybody else is free." It
absolutely.
took me 50
Absolutely.
years to feel that freedom. I don't want, see, people like Dr. Surabhi, they didn't have to wait for 50 years to come out and be free. I don't want us to have to live that life where we
Absolutely.
wait and wait in the closet, hide for what, So we've got final 15 minutes. Such a wonderful conversation. I hope everybody's enjoying it. I can see lots of comments, and thank you, Nicola, in the background. She's keeping sharing the tickers, and thank you for that. Fantastic conversation. I'm just going to just share something which completely caught my eye. Manju Patel Nair, she said, where did it go? Choice to marry is can be a private matter. The right to marry isn't. I think that's such a powerful comment to make. It is so true. We've in the final 15 minutes, audience, please keep sending us in comments, ask us questions. We've got three fantastic activists, passionate people here who will respond to everything. Now, three questions I have, one question each. I'm going to ask Niharika. I'm going to end with you because you're the most important person in terms of the law because we don't understand law. We are common people. I'm sitting here and thinking, I want this, I want that. But you have to tell me what can we get and what is the center crying about? Seriously, I have no idea. I still don't get it. So I'm going to start with Sridhar. Sridhar, Nicola, if you can get Sridhar's film. Sridhar is making another film called Kuch Sapne Apne. And I am a huge fan of Sridhar because Sridhar makes films that are so relevant for us. They're stories that we need to be told. And Sridhar, you want to tell us more about it? Sorry, Sridhar will have to wait, I think, because of the audio.
I have to unmute myself. Yeah. So
Yes.
Kuch Sapne Apne is a sequel to Evening Shadows, which won 27 awards, went to 82 film festivals, and was streamed on Netflix. It got a lot of love from everybody around. It's about a gay son coming out to his mother in small town India, and how the mother deals with the truth and stands up against her husband and the society to defend the child. So that got a lot of love, and everybody wanted to know what happens to the mother and the son and the characters around further. So unfortunately, the lockdown basically put a huge test on us. We couldn't do the film for the last 3 years. So right now we are coming back with the sequel. It's going to be a lot more exciting because we're going to trace the journey of the father. But the father didn't accept the child in the previous film at all. So what is the stand of the father? And male members are more difficult to uh, come around per se right now. I don't know why it is so. Maybe because we live in a patriarchal society. Fathers are the toughest. So the Swikar, the Rainbow Parents group, which was kickstarted by Evening Shadows, it has some 300 members now, out of which 80% are mothers. Only 20% are fathers. So that imbalance has to change per se. Fathers has to be more accepting. So this film talks about what are the challenges faced by the father in a dramatic way. And also it focuses on gay couple. So the earlier film didn't, they kept them apart. So this film really talks about how challenging it is for a gay couple to live together. And also in the end, it brings up the issue of same-sex marriage rights. So it's very much pertinent what we're discussing today is going to be the film. So we are hoping that we're going to get the film to be released next year, but we are crowdfunding right now. We are trying to make the film happen. So everybody who's watching this, please look at this particular ticker and contribute whatever you can, from 2,000 to 1 lakh rupees, whatever you can. We'll acknowledge. Yeah, thank you. So do contribute, and we're going to be acknowledging all the contributors and make sure that all of us are happy in making a film together, because we need, basically, as I said, the mainstream industry does not support kind of these kind of films which are talking only about LGBTQ stories. They usually want to dump in a mainstream character, dilute the whole story. Here we focus on our story and tell it the most honest way. So please support us. That's a plea. But Raga, really thank you for having me on the show.
Sure.
This topic is really close to my heart and of extreme importance at this point of time. So thank you for having us on the
Sure.
show for sure.
I support you also because of a whole lot of other things that you do. You contribute so much to society. We need people like you for us to, a lot of people, and I'm going to add this because Sridhar is also a good friend of mine. A lot of people tell us that they think same-sex couples are just like time pass. I say they don't acknowledge our relationships as being serious relationships. They'll I've had many experiences where I've been with Nicola, but they have kind of completely ignored us, saying and tried to patch me up with a man, for instance, thinking, "Arey, Raga hai na, she likes the men, because I was once married, whatever," or trying to, set me up with another woman. And I think it is important to acknowledge here that I've been with my partner for 16 years. Sridhar is an example of long-term 28-year relationship. We know of Sridhar, and I personally know of many other couples who've been together for 18, 20, even 30 years. So yes, same-sex partners, our relationships are very serious as well. We just love each other like heterosexual couples do. We can be in long-term relationships. So it is so critical for us. Therefore, and I'm reinstating this, we need the right, so that yes, if something were to happen to me in India, for instance, everything that I have built in India will go to my family. Not that I have any problem my family getting it, but my family is my wife. I want her to get it. We built it together. So I understand, Sridhar. Surbhi, I'm going to come to you, Sridhar. Because you're such a contrast to what we've been through. Here you are, like, you've been accepted easily. You have the privilege of your family. Your father was at the ceremony as well, your commitment ceremony. I find it very interesting. Is this something that you find is changing the new India? Or is it something that is, because you're also a psychiatrist, so you must meet a lot of people. So do you think you're an exception, or is it really changing? India is really changing.
So yeah, being a psychiatrist, I come across a lot of cases from the LGBTQIA spectrum. I don't like to call it a community. That is why I'm using LGBTQIA spectrum. Secondly, those cases are very disheartening, I would say. A lot of people contact me to be rescued. Some are trapped at their homes. Some are locked in. The other partner is crying on the phone that how can what can I do? The police is not responding. Nobody's doing anything. How can I go about it legally? I hope, does anybody know about the Noora and Nasreen case that had happened in India? So one of them was taken away by the family and locked in for 7 days, but the other partner filed in, I think, Kerala court,
Oh yes.
and then later on the court reunited both of them, saying that they both are adults and both are consenting adults and they can live together. So that is how they were reunited. But this is just one case that we heard of that came into the media. A lot of cases are happening in which they are not reunited. Nobody talks about it. There are no conversations around it. And the police and the legal system generally is not ready to help. So I would say that we are an exception in this case, because we did get so much of love and we got so much of affection from all over India. Even when our videos were released, I read a lot of comments. I saw a lot of people commenting on it separately as well, and they were maximally positive comments. 95% comments were positive, 5%, as you know, were filth, as you may say. But yeah, so we are an exception in this case, and I really hope that more and more people come out. But yeah, Raga, I would also add that after our commitment ceremony, there have been at least 4 to 5 more couples who have come out publicly and they have had their ceremonies publicly. So that too has happened because of this ceremony, and I'm very proud to say that our ceremony could actually help other people from the educated class, from the privileged class at least, to come out. But maximum of India is not privileged, and not having that privilege is not helping them in any way.
It will
So
change though, but that's to Niharika's point as well that she said. You made that point earlier, Niharika, as well.
just
Niharika,
one point I
yeah,
would
sure,
like to
sure.
add before I finish on what Niharika talked about, adopting children and so many children being in adoption centers and living, not so good lives. So, who are the candidates who are going to adopt maximally? They're LGBTQ couples. So at least that plea should also reach the center, that adoption houses will at least be helped out, because LGBTQ couples will adopt maximally.
I mean, like we said, children do need a loving family. That's all we need. Or a parent. That's all. One, two, doesn't matter. I'm a product of a single parent, and I will get told today that no matter you turned out like this. So that's also an argument that we will have. Huh, Ashridhar, please.
I just want to talk. We have been talking about gay and lesbian stories right now, but we also need to be focusing on the bisexual stories and asexual, non-binary. They're going to be facing a lot more challenges than both of us. Myself and Surabhi, we are basically, I would say, a little more privileged because we are identifying as gay or lesbian, but people who are going to be
Yeah.
identified as non-binary, gender questioning,
Sure.
trans men, they're going
Sure,
to have
sure.
a lot of challenges per se. We
Yeah.
need to really focus on those conversations in future your debates
Absolutely.
for
Shridhar,
sure.
we'll do that as well. I'll bring that as well into our conversation because this is a platform for everybody. And I believe that we have to start somewhere. I told Barkha also the other day, one step at a time, dheere dheere. You
Absolutely.
can't jump
Yeah.
because it's just started, right? And to that, before Niharika, yours is the most important question before we close. Okay, so I'm going to come back to you, but there are two questions which look very interesting, and I want to comment on that. Niharika, maybe you can comment. What do you think scares those opposing equal marriages, basically? And what can we do to help them realize it won't lead to societal collapse?
You know, as I said earlier, Raga, I think it's the feeling of the unknown. It's the feeling of the unknown. It is that notion that, oh, these people are not like us. That's all that it is. And once people are exposed to more members of the LGBTQ community, once they realize that there is no essential difference between any of us, and these things take time, these things take us they take a significant amount of time, and deep down I feel like you can't really change the prejudice that is in people's hearts. If someone is determined to dislike you for a trait that you have, an immutable trait that you have nothing, that you have no control over, then that is something, that is a person that you may not be able to reach. They may not ever come around to what it is, but I feel like the majority of society is in that way, and one way or the other, when something becomes the law, they have to accept it. That is the fact, and that is what happened with 377. You do have instances of people abusing process, you do have instances of people going forward and still attacking and harassing members of the LGBTQ community, but as time goes on, I think less and less and less of that will be considered acceptable by the majority of society, and that is how societies evolve. That's how all of us grow.
Excellent, excellent. And before I come back to again that last question from you, there's another very interesting question. It is actually quite correlated to what we're talking about. Is Dale saying, "I have a query for Niharika. If let's say we win and marriage equality becomes the law, how long does it take to be implemented? Would the parliament be able to mess with it? I mean, can they intervene?"
That's a very interesting question, and it all depends on how it is to come about. Now, should the Honorable Supreme Court deem that with regards to certain provisions, like say the petitions I'm working on are petitions under the Special Marriage Act, supposing they should deem that there is room within the Special Marriage Act for that interpretation, and they enforce that wider interpretation there and then it'll be thrown open, and it'll be an immediately accruing thing, right? Should they decide that this is the province of the legislature, maybe new framework is required altogether, and they throw it back to the legislature, it could take significantly more time. There could also be a situation where the honorable court might give some kind of truncated time in which this needs to come across. If it's simply a question of a wider interpretation, then it is a right that will accrue immediately once the judgment comes across, in the same way that Section 377 was decriminalized the day the Navte Johar judgment came out, right? So that is it. And when it comes to a question of can Parliament mess with it, or can any other legal authority mess with it, it's going to be before a constitutional bench. It's a five-judge bench. That is a hefty thing. And we also have the doctrine. This was settled for 377, the doctrine of progressive realization, which puts forward that there should not be a retrogression in any laws. Society should move forward in improvement, and just because these are political issues, they should not move back. Now, it all depends on what the honorable court holds and what the wording of this judgment might be. We are very hopeful, of course, that this will be expansive and liberty oriented, but it all depends when it will come into effect, how vulnerable it may be to outside influence, how it will be implemented. These we can all only know once the judgment is out once it's brought forward.
Sure. Thanks, Niharika. Listen, we're running out of time, but can I extend it? Can I request all of you to stay back? Great conversation. I don't want to interrupt this. I think even if it's in the next 10, 15 minutes, let's talk about it. Because I want to, one, understand is how long would that whole 18th April, they say? So will 18th April be 18th April or 18th April into 100 months? So how long will that conversation take and decision take place? And two is, what does it mean? What is the center's argument and what is their fear? And what is, what happens next for us as people who are watching, like we're thinking, oh my god, on the 18th of April I'm going to go to India and celebrate or
No,
not or cry.
no.
So yeah,
June.
So
June, I'm
that
coming.
that won't we won't be celebrating. We'll still be in the fight on the 18th of April. Hopefully, what we are very hopeful for is that arguments will commence, and the Honorable Court has given us a very short date, giving only 18th of April. So we are very hopeful that we'll be able to commence arguments by then if everybody's filings are complete. Because on the last date, there were a few petitioners, in fact, who had not put forward their written submissions. All the petitioners have to file in one compilation, and the state will file in another. The state filed just the day before the matter came up. All the petitioners had not yet filed. So these sorts of things do cause a delay. This is invariably an aspect of the judicial process. And then arguments will also take time because the petitioners together, since there are so many petitions, which is also a great thing, but since there are so many petitions, the collective hours that the petitioners have submitted for allowance of their arguments are approximately 36 hours. So it will take a significant amount of time, but we are hopeful that since the court has given us such a short date, since it's placed it before a constitutional bench, and since arguments will begin, we are hopeful on April 18th. We're very hopeful that it won't be too long a wait before
Okay.
this can go through.
Okay.
But Raga, like I think
Yeah.
the April, the court also goes into a holiday from May, so that's the other thing.
Yes.
I think the judgment will come after it resumes work in June. That
Certainly.
seems to be
I
the
don't anticipate
no,
the judgment
no,
pre-vacation at all.
yeah,
No.
I
Okay.
know.
So
That's
we
great.
have to not book our tickets yet.
It's not yet. It's a long haul, but hopefully we are at the end of a very long fight and a very long haul that's been going on for many decades. Also, with regards to what my opinion is on the center's arguments. Now, this is just speculation on my part. I have never felt that any political party has had too much, has put too much weight behind this issue. It's not just a question of this government, it is also a question of all the other governments. No party has really thrown its weight behind in support of. And the reason I think that is because A, it's a highly politicized issue. B, it is an issue that affects rights of the minority as opposed to rights of the majority. Now, this might be a cynical view on my part, but my view always is that political parties pander to the vote bank. If it's important to the vote bank, it's something that they'll give attention to. If it's not, it's something they won't. Right? So, also, but I was in court for the 377 arguments, and I did notice back then that when the government said, so the bench had sort of, from some statements from the bench during those arguments, you could tell that they were inclined towards decriminalization. They were inclined towards a reading down of the section, and the government had said at that time through the Learned Solicitor General that they would not oppose it as long as a question of greater civil rights was not gone into. They said they wouldn't oppose it. And at that time, a number of right-wing groups intervened. They filed intervention applications and they slammed the government. And they said they have abdicated their responsibility and that's why we have had to come here. So I think we were not surprised when the government opposed. I don't think, because they'd filed similar petitions against our High Court petition as well, similar replies, queer High Court petition. So I wasn't surprised when they opposed. I wasn't surprised about their arguments. Then the main thrust of their argument seems to be that this is a legislative issue. And of course, since many of the petitions filed deal with personal law and have to do with things like the Hindu Marriage Act and all of those acts have a religious aspect, right? The Special Marriage Act is away from the religious spectrum. It was specifically an act made to ensure that uh, that the impediments in religious marriages don't affect people. Like I myself had a Special Marriage Act ceremony because my husband and we are in an interfaith marriage, right? So we ourselves married not under personal law but under the Special Marriage Act. the Special Marriage Act can skate under some of the religious arguments. I believe that's also why this has been brought forward as a cultural thing. It's an Indian cultural thing, because if you say only religious, then the first question is, well, what about the Special Marriage Act? Are you saying that that's okay and we can skate through under that? But there is a big societal there is a societal morality argument that they have brought up. There will be a major push, I anticipate, against the any change to personal laws, especially. And they also did bring up the question of children. It raised a bit of an uproar in court as well. I thought it was a bit of a cruel and an unfair cut for the government to put forward. And as one of the counsels pointed out, there were people standing there in court already who were same-sex couples. They were before the court. They were same-sex couples. They have children already that they are raising. So, I mean, some arguments, invariably, there will be some arguments that cause an emotional reaction and an upheaval. But I feel that the court will look at this strictly on the basis of is there room for interpretation here? And are these provisions not in accordance with the constitutional
Sure,
provisions and the constitutional rights? I
sure.
think that's what it will be. We're not going to be able to celebrate quite yet, but
Okay, we will celebrate. We will keep fighting. I mean,
we will keep fighting.
I
And
love. Yeah, go on, go on.
even if this, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but even if this goes further, even if this judgment talks only of marital rights alone, doesn't extend further to the questions of adoption, right to children, things like that, that may be a job for different petitions. It may be decided in this
Correct.
case as well, because this is already something that has been raised, especially by the state. This is something that has been raised already, so it might be decided in this petition as well. Also, as soon as you have the moniker of a spouse, you are considered a parent to anyone's child once you are in a marriage, right? But the question here will be, is it in this fight that it will be resolved? Will there be further fighting? Will there be further petitions? But from the amount of support there was in court itself alone, not just the thousands of people outside as well and waiting for the center's verdict, but just the people in there in court fighting. If there is a need for this fight to continue, there are a lot of people who are willing to fight it and wanting to fight it, which makes
Brilliant.
me very hopeful.
Yeah, brilliant. And that is what I was just trying to interrupt and say, that I'm very mindful of the fact that we've come a long way. India has come a long way. From a time that someone like myself, I couldn't come out, I had to marry, I have children. It took me, like, say, to be 50 to come out, to the reaction that I got from my own family when I came out. I was ostracized, by my friends and family. So that reaction to now that we're actually discussing and debating, Dale, just to say that this is not a debate. We will have debates. That's when the fire will start. I promise you, we will have debate. We will have many such sessions where we'll have understanding of what we're setting the scene to understand what is the problem. We are just regular people having regular lives. Sorry, we are extraordinarily talented. That you can't take away from us. Yeah, but the talent is not as being LGBT. The talent is that we are actual professionals who do a lot of great work for ourselves. So debates will continue, right, Sridhar and Dr. Surbi? The debates will happen, and I swear it will be a fiery debate. I am looking, and we are looking for someone who has a different point of view to please come and join us at the viewsroom at gmail.com. Write to us. Tell me exactly what you think of us. I'd love to invite you if you're able to, fire out your feelings. I'd be happy to have you. We will have Niharika definitely back. Sridhar, of course, we need to talk more about films. Dr. Surabhi, I want to talk more about psychology and the impacts supposedly it has on our children, on our siblings, our families. I don't understand that really well, because I think my impact has been fantastic. You're a great role model yourself. The younger generation is learning from you and they want to be like you. So I see only positive impact. I don't see anything negative. So on that note, Sridhar, is there something you want to say? I just thought you were coming forward.
No, no, absolutely
Not
nothing.
giving you
Yeah,
money yet.
no, that's
No,
fine.
but
Okay.
it's been a wonderful
And I have a
conversation.
lot of examples to talk about, so many examples of conversion practices going on, and so many things going on in our country. So many mental health professionals behaving like non-professionals, and a lot of things. Whenever I come back next, I will definitely talk about the mental health aspect of the LGBTQI spectrum
Sure, sure.
with proper demographics.
Sure. So just so that the audience knows that what we're planning to do is we're going to have series of these conversations. Hopefully it will go on to June as well. And after, when they are vacationing, we will have conversations. I want to understand, first of all, every aspect of this problem. Why is it a societal problem? What is the problem that we talk about Indian culture? What do we do? How do we manage that? How do we change the narrative? What is the real psychology behind this? And what is the debate about? So those conversations will happen. We will come back. I actually had done a very quick poll on LinkedIn and Twitter just to see what people think, and it was interesting. I don't know, Nicola, whether we have a minute to just put that poll up. And it just there were only 135 votes because I did only for a few hours. In few hours, we got 135 votes, and you look at that. 89% of the people say it should be legalized. Same-sex marriage
Yeah.
should be legalized in India. And what was interesting to me, and I love the fact that there were people who said no, it should not be. And then I looked at who these people are, and there's a certain kind of demographic. There's a certain, you'll see a pattern. And I will not disclose who those people are, of course, for many reasons. But most importantly, I will discuss that as an individual show, in an individual show, independent show later, because it's important to understand who are these
Okay.
people, why are they opposing, do they have an argument, do they feel threatened, or do they really just feel that, humko ne, are they threatened by my homosexuality because it takes their heterosexuality away? I don't know. Maybe it does. So we will have those conversations, and thank you, audience, for joining in, for being patient with us. And I hope you all come back next week. Let us know if you want to listen to anything in particular, and we will come back to you. And on that, please thank you, the Views Room, who's producing it along with Nicola. And like I
Nicola,
said,
thank you.
if you want to be part of this show and want to share your views, opinions, please write to us at theviewsroom@gmail.com. And I am totally out now. And see you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting us.